My name is Lars Nielsen. I'm a test engineer from Keysight Technologies. Today I'll talk about the execution of integrated experiments and the process of data extraction from the TaaS system. First, I'll go through the execution of experiments from use case to formalization. Next, I'll present the data storage and extraction of data from within TaaS. And I'll also give a small demo of this. In previous training sessions, we have used this example. We have a hospital and an ambulance. The ambulance needs to transmit live information to the hospital about the patient while in transit. This includes vital signs, live video, and other information. The test engineer wants to create a number of procedures to test the setup, where one aspect is the communication network used between the ambulance and the hospital. So first, the engineer selects the KPIs of interest and how to measure them. With that list, he can formalize the test cases and experiments to measure the KPIs. Next, it must be ensured that the tools needed to perform the measurements are available. This means developing OpenTop plugins. With the plugins, the test scripts can be created, which in turn can be collected in test campaigns. Now the test can be executed, which can be done as a one-off, or they can be scheduled to be executed periodically. Alternatively, they can also be scheduled whenever updates to the infrastructure are pushed. Finally, the results and the data should be collected, and it should be decided how and where the data is stored. And finally, the data should be analyzed and visualized. In a previous training session, we also showed how experiments can be formalized. So just to recap, before we can create a detailed test case description, we can perform some experiments to try out the procedure and understand how the system behaves. We can formalize the experiments in terms of purpose, description, initial conditions, and so on. Based on these experiments, we can later define parameters for the test description. With the experiment formalized, we can make sure that we have the tools for performing the tests. We showed an example of this in previous training session. Here we developed a SSH plugin to control entities, and based on that, developed a plugin to control iPerf. This showed the progression of developing a plugin for OpenTop, which is the sequencing approach used in the TaaS system. Moving on to the last few parts of the TaaS flow, specifically how and where the data is stored and presented. Based on the process described before, the main interaction with the TaaS system gives us these flows. We create test cases using plugins to control test tools and DOTs. We create campaigns where we collect several test cases to measure the KPIs we need, and we execute the campaigns. Finally, we need to evaluate the results, and in doing this, consuming the data and visualizing it using Grafana. The flows from previous slides are indicated here on the figure. The user creates test cases and campaigns, executes the campaigns, and data is pushed to the databases, either from the tool or from the OpenTop plugin. Grafana accesses the data and visualizes it in panels and dashboards. This is the current state of tools, plugins, and result storage. We are currently working on adding more plugins and creating more Grafana boards. More tools, plugins, and databases will probably be added along the way. If you have a specific request to include data from another source, you are naturally very welcome to push the process. You can do this by creating a plugin to control what you need and to publish the data of interest. Once the plugin is added to the TaaS, the results will be pushed to a database by a result listener. Currently, we use a PostgreSQL result listener in TaaS. We have an InfluxDB result listener, which is created by the University of Malaga, which might be included if required. Moving on to the data extraction. Currently, we support Grafana. You go to Grafana, sign in, and go to Dashboards. While viewing a dashboard, you can select the time range to show data within. A new dashboard can be created from scratch by importing an existing dashboard from JSON or by copying an existing dashboard and modifying it. When creating a panel, you have to select the data source. The databases available in TaaS are added in Grafana so they can be selected. Then you can create a query to only extract the data needed. Finally, you can create the visualization. Currently, a wide range of visualization plugins are available, but if others are needed, you can be added upon request. Okay, let's see how this looks in action. Good. So first I'll show you here in TaaS. We are in the dashboard where we can see an overview of executed campaigns. I have executed this iPerf loop campaign, which executes a bunch of iPerf tests and pushes the results to, and publish the results, and the results are then pushed to the Postgres database in the system by the result listener. So let's go directly to Grafana and see how we can get a hold of the results. Start with signing in. Then we are prompted with this welcome page. We can see we have a bunch of dashboards that I recently have been looking at. We can go to manage and create a new dashboard. But first I need to figure out how to actually format my query to the database. So I can go to this explore menu. Ensure that I have the right database. Edit this one. So I know that I push the results with the tag iPerf and then some name and ID. So if we start by pulling this, then I get a printout basically of all iPerf related results in the Postgres database. Here I know that the table 0 is this the tag and the ID. Dimension 1 is the protocol used, so we can see that it's either UDP or TCP. Dimension 2 is the duration in seconds. Dimension 3 is whether it's download or upload. Download is 0, upload is 1. Dimension 4 is bitrate. You can see we have tested with a bunch of different bit rates. Dimension 5 is then either retransmissions or packet loss, depending on if it's TCP or UDP. And then we have some additional dimension 6 that I don't care about right now. Okay, so we know that I can get this type of information. So if I want to get a more directed query, I have created this in advance, so it's nice and simple. So with this, it actually creates a graph for me to show how the results look. So we can see from the query that I pull out dimension 4 as downlink traffic, and I do some modification of the timestamp, which was dimension 6, and put that out as time. And then when Grafana gets a table or a column called time, it knows, okay, then I can plot it like that. And I do some filters to only get the iPerf related data, to only get TCP, and to only get download. So this is specific for download. I've done the same for upload, but we will put that directly in the panel. All right. So I know that I can use this query. So let's go to manage dashboards. Here we see there are a number of different dashboards. If we go to iPerf, there's a iPerf board where we already have created some panels previously if you watched some previous training sessions. But let's do it from scratch. So we click Add Panel. We can either choose to start with creating the query or creating the visualization first, but we want to create the query first. Select the right database, change the input type to text, like that, select table, and then we get the data out. Then we can do the same for upload. So again, cheated a bit, done it in advance. So we now have the download and the upload. It's quite a good practice to do it like this, to keep as specific data per query as possible, because then you can manage the queries when actually doing the plotting later on. So let's go on to visualization. Here we can choose a bunch of different visualizations. For now, graph is fine. We can then choose how to plot the different lines. So we have something was missing. This one. Yes. So we have downlink, and we have uplink. And here we can choose how we want to plot it. If we want to plot it as a bar plot, lines, dots, dashes, colors, thickness, which y-axis to use, so on and so on. You can add a lot of different information that we can do on a per plot basis or per query basis, which is why we want to separate the upload and the download in different queries. So here let's say the green one, give it a downlink, let's give it the green color, and uplink we will give a blue color. So it's nice and easy to see. Then moving on to the axis, we can see we have the left and right axis. We are not using the right one right now, so we can disable that. Then we can select what unit to show. Right now it's just a simple number, but it's Grafana actually, or this plugin actually provides a lot of different units that you can select from. So here we want to select data rate, and I know it's bits per second. Let's see, it's nicely scaled. We can add more information, selecting how many decimals we want to show, give it a label, give it a Y max and minimum. So I know my tests didn't go above 200, so let's say 210 megabit. We can add some legends. We can define how to show them, if we want to show them at all, if we want to show them to the right, so on and so on. A lot of different modifications. We can add some thresholds to indicate, oh, if the value we are showing is going above or below that, we can kind of have a clear indication of that, so you don't have to manually go and see it. You can add a line to that. And that's about it. So then we can go on, give it a title, my nice panel, give it a description, and that's basically it. So we can save it. So it saves each version of the panel. So if I go and change something and save it again, then I can go back in the history and see the different versions of the panel. A final thing, we can also add an alert. So if we have a continuous plot of this, continuous measurements, then we can make an alert saying that, okay, if it goes below this value, then I want to do something. You can create email notifications and stuff like that. So let's go back to the main screen. We see our panel has been created. We have downlink and uplink. We have the description and the title. And here you can mix and match. You can change the size however you want. You can duplicate your panel. You can copy it. You can go to another board and copy a panel from there and paste it here. And so on and so on. You can also import panels from JSON. So that's mainly what I wanted to show here. Thank you. To summarize, I've shown how data is stored and how it can be extracted. Currently we support storing data in PostgreSQL from the campaigns and pulling from Grafana. Next steps include adding more options for result storage, and to add options for the user to select where to store the results, possibly in external DBs. Okay, that was all from me. If you have any questions, now is the time. Thank you.